It's a little weird because we're going to start with the Steelers. It's a newer segment that we've been doing for a couple weeks now. Noah, why don't you hit it? That's right. Around the water cooler. It's reserved for topics that take a little more time than 30 seconds, but don't deserve, especially in the Steelers case, a full topic length. And that is what we're talking about right now. And that's whether or not the Steelers are going to be a threat this year. Should anybody be worried about them, either in the AFC North or the broader NFL? Noah, I let you start 30-second take. So, John, give me your take first.
Yeah, I can see why you'd look at the roster and say no. I can see why you'd have an argument against it. I can see why, as a Browns fan, you'd be optimistic that this might be the year you get over on the Steelers. But Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season, and this team is always prepared. They always get the most out of their talent. And if there's one thing I know, it's that they know how to rally the troops. So if you're saying, do I have the Steelers playing into February and competing for a Super Bowl? No. If you're saying, do I expect them to beat the Baltimore Ravens and win the division? The answer is still no. But anybody who knows anything about the NFL and has watched it for the last 40 years can never say the Steelers shouldn't be taken seriously or that the Steelers are incapable of being a threat to the AFC North. Are the Steelers a threat to the AFC North? As the question states, you bet your ass they are. And I don't care who's quarterback because they play great defense. They have a great home field advantage. They have an excellent coach. They have one of the most well-respected and well-run franchises in the NFL. At risk of being called a Steelers fan by Erik just because I'm telling the truth about how they are and who they are.
I thought we were moving on.
Yeah, there is a big gap between being a threat and being a Super Bowl champ or contender. But if the question is, are the Steelers a threat to the AFC North and potentially beyond? They are every single year they take the field.
I want to jump in here real quick, Noah, because I have a feeling I know your take here. First, I want to say, John says I can't drop things, this guy. But second of all, I'm so split because I can go either way here. I could see this being the first year that the Steelers aren't a 500 team. But when I say that out loud, I think it's absolutely crazy. Because, John, you're right. They do have one of the best coaches in the NFL. I know Noah will disagree with that point. But they have one of the best coaches in the NFL that does more with less. Now, does he do less with more? Yeah, I think he does that too. We're not talking about winning a Super Bowl here, as you said. We're talking about competing in the AFC North. And what we do know is the guys that will be playing for him will be ready. That said, they didn't really make big moves this offseason that made sense. Yeah, they went and got DK Metcalf, but you say, okay, who's throwing to him? That's interesting. Not sure. They do have an elite defense, but as we saw last year, any game that TJ Watt sits out of, that defense crumbles pretty quick, which is kind of unbelievable that he has, he steps up so much for them. That said, I could see them being the number 2 team in the North. That seems crazy because you have a very good Baltimore team that will probably take it. You have a pretty damn good Cincinnati team that re-signed all of its weapons. And then you have a Browns team that I'm not sure what we're going to do. I think it's going to be better than most people are projecting, but I can also see us being in the basement of the North. So for me, if I'm a betting man, I'm probably betting on Tomlin and being above 500, maybe squeaking into the playoffs. I don't know. They clearly got to do something about quarterback, but I wouldn't bet against them at this point. Noah?
Well, super quick, 20-second on top of that, just because you hit one of the points I wanted to hit. In how many of the last few seasons where they did go 500 or better was Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, or, Tommy Maddox, the fucking quarterback? Not knowing who the quarterback is doesn't necessarily mean they're not capable of winning 9 games.
It's a fair point because, Ben Roethlisberger was how many years ago now?
A lot.
2020?
Mm-hmm.
So, not a bad point. Noah, give me your take.
Yes, thank you. Finally, I was about 4 or 5 times there.
You were what? Do that one more time.
Listen, I
Clip
think
that
this
now.
I think this
Jesus.
is very, very, very important to have this conversation. Tim Lyons says it best in the chat. Tomlin and the Steelers have lost 6 first-round games in a row. One more, and he'll be tied with Marvin Lewis with 7. What do you think of Marvin Lewis as a coach, first of all? Just to piggyback on my point from earlier episodes.
He's a solid coach. He wasn't great.
Yeah, where is he now?
Doesn't matter. Same place as the last 82 Browns coaches. The question wasn't, do you think he's better
Okay,
than Marvin Lewis?
I just wanted to hit a point there before I continue. So, Erik, you make the fantastic, fine, important point of the fact that they didn't make any really big moves. DK, of course, is a fantastic move. They signed him to an extension. Doesn't make sense, though. They think they're getting Aaron Rodgers. It sounds like they're getting Aaron Rodgers, but who knows where he is right now. Mason Rudolph is currently the QB1. I saw a tweet today from a Steelers reporter, Steelers fan, one of the prominent people on X for the Steelers, saying that they could see Mason Rudolph having a Sam Darnold-esque season this year. Mason Rudolph played meaningful football last year, gentlemen, for the Tennessee Titans. He had 1,500 yards, 9 touchdowns, 9 interceptions on a 55.5 QBR. You guys talk about this team having an elite defense. I agree in theory, but they are both regressing, something that Tim Lyons has also pointed out in the chat. TJ Watt in the last 3 games of the season had no sacks, no turnovers, 1 TFL. ESPN projects TJ Watt to finish with 50 tackles and 10 sacks, which is a full regression compared to what we've seen in years past. I'm not saying TJ Watt's bad at football. I'm saying TJ Watt's getting older. He's regressing a bit. It happens. Same thing with
Minka.
Miles
is regressing? Just out of curiosity, real quick.
No, he's younger.
Okay.
Yeah, he's not there yet. TJ Watt's about to be 31.
Carry on.
Minka Fitzpatrick, 0 interceptions the season before, 1 interception last season. Also regressing. Kind of feels like they don't know what to do with him all the time. That's all fine and dandy. On top of the fact that they ship out a wide receiver option, which is probably a good move given their track record of shipping out wide receivers, talking about George Pickens, obviously, attitude problems, being late to meetings, yelling at teammates on the sideline, jogging on a pick 6, blase, blase, blah. And I wrap this all up to say that if there is a year to think that the Steelers are finally going to go and be under 500, this is the year. As a betting man, would you bet against Mike Tomlin, who has done this and somehow made it at least 9-8? No, I would be stupid to come here on the show and say that. But Erik, when you make the point of, I look at what they've done, and for me to be like, yeah, they'll go 9-8, I feel like I'm insane because it's insane.
I am split. First of all, I want to make one point because I think you're completely off base. Myles Garrett and TJ Watt are 1 year apart. Myles Garrett turns 30, TJ Watt turns 31, and they're 2 months apart. So bad take there. But yeah, I stand by what I said. I'm conflicted. Now, I'll say this. John, what did we bet dumplings on recently? Because I can't keep them straight anymore.
No idea. 2 different things, but
it was like the Browns.
Oh, it was the Browns record. Wins. Browns record.
Yeah.
All right. New rule. We're going to mark the date down, like write it down when we make bets so that we can actually reference the show. But Noah, are you willing to do a bet, one single dumplings, order of dumplings?
No.
I say they will go above 500. You say under?
No, I already said if I'm a betting man, I'm not betting on them to go under 500. I ended my take with that. No, I'm not betting you that.
Well, here's a way to reframe it, because I like where you were headed, Erik, even though he's not going to do the bet. Also, you referring to where's Marvin Lewis now and then dropping Mason Rudolph that line from Tennessee is fucking wild. But anyway, that's not the point.
Yeah, how did Marvin Lewis get dragged into that? I know he didn't win a playoff game, but that was wild.
He was like, I was waiting for this thing for so long.
It was referencing Tim's comment, to be fair. It was referencing Tim's comment where he said he was about to tie Marvin Lewis. Let me pull it back up real quick. Tomlin and the Steelers have lost 6 first-round games in a row. 1 more, and he'll be tied with Marvin Lewis at 7. I was just using that to start buffering my Steelers hate speech. But yes, that is
Tomlin
funny to go.
Did win a Super Bowl, but go on, John.
With the team that was handed to him.
To back out of the banter, because I know, no, you don't like arguing semantics or when we start bickering. Let me just take a big step back and say, how about you answer the question?
Okay.
You talk shit about the Steelers for 5 minutes and then said, but a crazy man would bet against them. They're going to win 9 games. If you win 9 games this division, you're a threat. It doesn't mean you're going to win the division. So the question is, are the Steelers a threat to the AFC North? Can we get a yes or a no as opposed to Steelers hate, but then, yeah, they're probably a threat.
So not everything in life is black and white, right? So I'm going to give you a caveat.
Yeah, come on.
Give you a caveated answer. No, I'm going to give you a caveated answer of I think the Steelers are going to be bad this year. I also said this last year. They were not good last year, but they still made the playoffs.
So you do I see the Steelers will be bad, but you don't want to bet that they'll win less than 9 games?
They're going to be in that 7-9 range because that's just what they do.
I just think this could be the year. Yeah, that's not that bad when you're playing in the North.
Well, is the North really that strong anymore? We're talking about us, them, the Bengals, who were horrible last year. No offense to Tim Lyons. They played underneath their own. Well, they weren't. Yeah, they were bad for a while there, and then they finally caught fire at the end and still missed the playoffs. So you have us, and then you have the Ravens, who have won it multiple times. I love how Tim Lyons just asked us how much is egg rolls instead of dumplings.
They don't have egg rolls.
At the risk of sounding redundant, I'm going to say it again. You want to answer the question?
No, I think the Steelers are not a threat to anything because they're a first-round exit. I don't think they're winning the AFC.
No. We said threat in the North or overall. We weren't saying they're going to go on a playoff tear. No one said that.
So a threat to me is to win the AFC North. No, I don't think they'll win the AFC North. Are they a threat beyond? No, because I don't think they're making it out of the first round. That's the exact question.
I would say a threat bottom is being able to knock somebody else out of the playoffs.
Agreed.
And I think they are that.
Even if you fall short.
I don't think they could knock someone out in the actual playoffs. Are you saying like someone in
for a spot? Yeah.
Well, we're talking semantics now. I'm not going to get goaded into taking a bet that I don't want to take. So you guys can keep trying for the next 3 to 10 minutes. It's still going to be the same answer. No,
John and I put our money where our mouth is, and no, it doesn't.
And it is a sports debate.
It's just not a bet I would take. I'm just trying to be smart with the money.
To be
I'm
fair,
trying to gain clarity on where you stand. That's all. I just, you're out of one side of your mouth. You're saying, I'd be an idiot to bet against Mike Tomlin. I'd be an idiot to bet against the Steelers. I bet against them in the past, and they proved me wrong. And then I'm saying, okay, so you're not confident enough to bet. And then you go, no, absolutely not. They're only going to win 8 or 9 games this year. And I'm like, so they are a threat. It doesn't mean they're going to win. It just means they're a threat. With 4 weeks left in the season, are the Pittsburgh Steelers still going to be in the conversation? Will they still have a path? If you think they're going to win 8 or 9 games, I feel like the answer is yes.
Tim is willing. He follows it up with, I'll be that idiot. Tim is willing to take the bet. Tim, I wish you weren't in Washington because I'd rather have you here where we could actually do dumplings together. That's the fun part and why we bet them. But I'll take you on. It's roughly $10 for dumplings, I think.
Yeah, $10.
Call it $10 for an order of dumplings. If the Steelers are above 500, then you'll Venmo me $10 and I'll buy dumplings. If they're below 500, then I'll Venmo you $10. You know I'm good for it because I already paid you $50. And I'll say it right now: virtual shake, shake, shake. So just put in the chat shake, 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 and we'll make that a bet.
It's on. I bet 10 on not 8 or 9 or lower. There you go. There you have it.
All right.
Ready for the drama when they win 9 games. We're going to have to figure out what to do about the bet, but I love it.
Erik, write it down this time for real, so that way you remember it. I get what you're saying. I get why you're frustrated with my take. I'm just trying to learn from what I've said in years past, because last year I thought for sure they were going to be under 500, right? They didn't do that. They were just on the cusp. They made the playoffs. They did the same thing they've done the last, 5-6 years or however it's been. They've been a little bit better than that, but you know what I'm saying. So to put actual monetary value on the fact that they're going to go under 500, I don't feel confident in doing it. But out of any of the years that I've had to take that the Pittsburgh Steelers are finally going to go under 500, this is the year I feel the most confident because they're betting on an old Aaron Rodgers who has a bunch of drama. And a deteriorating team. Something I wanted to follow up too is, yes, I realize I mistaken the age between Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. Myles Garrett has not shown a sign of decrease so far. If you look at just the bare stats, TJ Watt's sacks and numbers have gone down. Myles Garrett played at a defensive player of the year level last year. He was in that conversation. Not saying that TJ Watt isn't one of the best defenders still. I'm just saying he is starting to deteriorate, and it's visible. Pittsburgh fans say it. Tim Lyons is saying it in the chat. If you watch, you can tell it's not the same level as what he was 2 or 3 years ago. That's all I'm saying.
I love Myles, but I could make the same argument the other day or the other way. Ever since Myles had COVID, it seems like he takes plays off, that he's gassed easier.
I disagree because he's won the defensive player of the year since then. So
has
but that's
TJ
a whole
Watt.
nother...
That's not a good argument. And everyone said that TJ should have gotten it that year. I don't want to get into that because I don't agree with that. But that's like saying Mobley won defensive player of the year this year. That doesn't mean shit. I'm talking about actually watching with my eyeballs and seeing that he has taken plays off. I'm just saying you can argue it both ways.
Alrighty.
One thing that we didn't cover with the Steelers in particular, if they do fall below 500 this year, miss the playoffs, do you guys think Tomlin is gone or that his seat is hot?
I think he'll be gone if they fall below 500, because I think that'll be kind of the final straw to press like a harder reset button than they have. Not because I'm saying, and I'm leaning into the fact that I think he's an overrated coach because of all of the semantics and stuff that we've talked about before on the show. Check that out if you haven't already. But because it's just time. Sometimes you see things like that happen. You can be at a level where it's time to just cut bait and try some new things and restart fresh, especially with it being like a contract year for TJ Watt and some of the other stuff that they have going on. The only contract I think that they're tethered to is Minka and DK in terms of like big money, big names, but I could be mistaken. I don't have that number in front of me.
Listen, I think that this time of year people forget. So one of the, I don't want to say I hate it because I don't. I even engage in it. But one of the things that we need to take with a fat ass grain of salt is the whole will he or won't he get fired as a coach conversation. Because I am a personal firm believer that you are as safe in your job as the available options. Ryan Day is not safe at Ohio State coming off a national championship if Nick Saban calls and says, I've always wanted to coach the Buckeyes. Can I get a job? He literally just won a national championship, and they might let his ass go.
No Coaching chance, is but go on.
Okay. Maybe that's hyperbole, but you get what I'm saying. Will Mike Tomlin get fired is going to have a really, really, really big amount to do with who's available to take the job at the time. Steelers fans are getting disenchanted with him. I understand why, because they're used to winning Super Bowls, and they haven't in a while, but also – it's hard to fire one of the longest tenured coaches in the league who's never had a losing season because he finally has one losing season with a dumpster fire at the quarterback position and pretty much for the whole offense.
Yeah, if they fire him, first of all, or he leaves on his own terms, as Tim said, I hope the Browns scoop him up immediately. I think that he is one of the best players, coaches in the league, and his deficiencies can be solved with good coordinators. You put a good OC with him, you put a good DC with him. He does what head coaches are supposed to do, and that's be that leader of men. We've talked about it on the show before, and be the overall game guy. Yeah, some of his in-game decisions aren't great, but I would hope that the Browns would hire him immediately. Sorry, Stefanski, you got to go.
We're getting off the beaten path, and I'd like to talk some Browns OTAs now.
Wow. I can't believe that you still hate on one of the winningest coaches in the league. It's insane.
He needs a break, man. It's okay. You can let it rest.